All right, we head straight into our conversation right now. We have a few minutes to spend with Kenneth Muhangi, who will be joining us all the way from Uganda. And we'll be dealing with the issue of internet censorship and how it affects or otherwise the development of the continent. Kenneth, if you're with me, thanks for joining us on Tech Hub.
Yes. Hi, Marcy. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Kenneth, if you can hear me, thanks for joining us on Tech Hub.
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me, but
Absolutely.
I'm
You see,
saying
Kenneth,
thank
you were supposed to be on the show. That was it 2 Fridays ago, right? Yes, you were supposed to be on the show 2 Fridays ago, but you sent me a message just a few hours before that there is an internet shutdown in Uganda because of the elections, and that was why you couldn't come to the show. Could you give us a background information on what happened and why in the first place is there a need for, internet censorship or internet shutdown during elections?
Okay, so as you rightly mentioned, by the time that I was scheduled to speak at on your show, we had an internet shutdown in Uganda. Now, usually whenever you're looking at internet shutdown, the debate is not as easy as it seems. Usually there are certain considerations that you have to look at, as Trump says, from both sides. Now, the debates usually are whether uh, you should flip that kill switch, what they call the kill switch that's able to remove the internet. That's if you have cases where, let's say, you have a lot of misinformation, where you have a lot of hate speech, where you have instances where people, for example, are using the internet for reasons that cannot be allowed or cannot be tolerated. And on the other hand, you find that certain political actors use the internet or shut down the internet if there is a belief that there are perhaps people that they disagree with or people that they believe should not have a platform within which or with which they can be able to coordinate or be able to communicate to their fans or anyone who is actually active on their particular platforms. So as I mentioned, the answers are not so simple. But if you're to look at it worldwide, I think the shutdown of the internet, it's not just Africa. In the rest of the world, we've seen that many countries have gone that route in order to try and stop certain happenings from continuing. You saw that in Ukraine. For those of you that are interested in that particular region, where there was talk of certain propaganda that was initiated or promoted by the Russians to be able to destabilize Ukraine. And in 2017, Ukraine shut down would shut down particular targeted sites in Russia to stop such misinformation. And they tried to justify that attack, of course, by showing those sites and the misinformation that it actually had. Then you also have other instances in London, in the United Kingdom, in 2019, where there were protests from, I think the group was called Extinction Republic, and they shut down internet. Well, just for a limited time, but they did shut it down in the London Underground, in the tubes. That was the same thing that happened in Sri Lanka, where there were coordinated attacks which they called terrorist attacks, that left, I think, about 300 dead. That was over the Easter weekend, again, back in 2019. And again, they shut down the internet. And the justification, of course, then was if you left the internet there, most of these attacks had either tribal or religious sentiments. So it was necessary for them to be able to do that. And of course, if you move to Africa as well, usually the shutdown usually happens whenever you have elections. In Tanzania, that happened in Uganda, as you rightly mentioned as well, in Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Togo, Burundi. I could go on and on. And in the past, whenever you'd talk about the use of social media, especially if you're using entities like Facebook, when Facebook had just begun, it was, all of us were so endeared towards it, you'd see that in those particular instances, social media was useful to be able to promote effective communication. Or even recently, whenever there was a natural calamity or anything of the sort, you'd have that, check safety to see, to flag yourself safe if there was any natural disaster or any violence. So that is on the one hand, where it may be justified to be able to shut down the internet or to shut down social media. But on the flip side, as I've mentioned, in some instances, you've seen that the shutdown has been orchestrated by governments that do not want their opponents or political opponents to be able to have a platform, to be able to have a voice.
Kenneth, wait, I want to ask here because I'm a bit bothered here. I know, yeah, there's always fake news, there's always disinformation and misinformation during elections. This is not only peculiar to Africa, but is the outright shutdown of the internet the way forward? I mean, a lot of things come with not having access to the internet, for instance. People cannot watch to know what is going on. Speak, yes. Please.
Okay. Yes, I think that's a very, very good question, Mercy. It might, of course, if you're looking at a total shutdown of internet, as I had started before, whenever you're looking at shutdown, you try to look at the nuances in that particular region. So while for me, my view, of course, is that ultimately, as a tech lawyer, I must promote access to internet. I must promote access to freedom of speech. So as you mentioned, if you shut down the internet completely, in legal parlance, we call that the substantial shutdown. Then of course that will also affect other sectors. If you're clamping down on speech and you're focusing on social media, but you shut down the entire internet, of course that's likely to affect the sectors like e-commerce that depend on the internet, sectors like banking that also depend on the internet, sectors like healthcare that now we have selective surgeries that are using artificial intelligence or other Internet of Things tools to be able to promote healthcare, to be able to service particular patients. So again, it depends on how you look at it. But on the other hand as well, you will realize that in Africa in particular, at least speaking for Uganda or speaking for this region, you'll find that you have a lot more users using the internet for social media compared to everything else. So as I've said, for governments that are doing that, the consideration usually, it's a very, very, very delicate balance. But in my view, as you rightly mentioned, I do believe that it is riskier, or the impact is felt more if you switch off in a substantial manner rather than in a selective manner.
Kenneth, I mean, you are hanging on the side that is opposite my direction, because I still think you should let things be the way they are and try as much as possible to, I don't know, balance the whole equation. I mean, don't you think this internet censorship is, you know, is detrimental to the development of the continent, seeing that we need to move forward as fast as possible and catch up with the developed nation? And if you think so, what is the way forward? Quickly, please.
Yes, okay. I think before I answer that question, I think the viewers need to first understand that although there's a substantial shutdown of internet, in most instances, there are also other types where governments shut down internet. So you have the selective type. That's where, if you're looking at the political side, where the government that has the authority to be able to shut down these sites chooses or selects certain either social media sites or websites that they believe are either propagating misinformation, or they just want to stifle them so that they are not able to communicate with the viewers. On the other hand, whenever we're talking about internet shutdown, especially in a selective manner, we also realize that for instances of things like pornography, governments have the mandate as well to shut down those particular sites, and that's still an internet shutdown. Whether it is contrary to the law or not, that depends on the particular region where that has happened. Then you have another type which is called a pervasive shutdown. In that particular instance, the government in that particular instance now targets certain people and blocks their sites, blogs, and stops them from posting. And then in other instances, you have little or none. So as I mentioned before, if you look at the effect, if you look at it from a political angle, then of course I do believe there are also other means or other modes that governments can be able to use to be able to discuss with opponents that may not necessarily stifle the freedom of speech. Because we also need to understand, especially for Africa, you have particular conventions that most of African countries have signed to, like the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, which, since we were talking about data protection, I saw a clip over the WhatsApp issue. If you look at it from that particular angle, you risk having fines from companies that want to invest in African countries, where if you shut down the internet, and then you remove security tools. For example, if people cannot be able to have antiviruses, during that shutdown, it is easy for hackers to hack into the systems. And when they do that, data may go missing. And if you look at it from other jurisdictions, there was a decision coming from the European Court of Justice that held that the U.S., the United States of America, which we all think is the pinnacle of democracy and everything else, does not have adequate data protection laws because of their surveillance laws. Now, so they're actually limiting people in the EU from transferring data to the US. Now, if you use that same logic for countries
Kenneth?
within Africa, it's
Absolutely.
very easy for those countries to have, so it's a very easy for countries to stop doing business in Africa.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. I know if I leave you, we'll speak for the next 3 days about this issue because it's something that you are very passionate and particular about. And I just hope that people like you, IT lawyers like you, and all that tech enthusiasts and other data privacy enthusiasts can probably go on a challenge of informing, users, internet users, both in the rural and urban areas, and how to, avoid spreading fake news and the rest of them, so that in subsequent elections, we won't have internet shutdowns like this. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech Hub, Kenneth Muhangi, an IT lawyer all the way from Uganda. Thank you so much. All right. Internet shutdown, fundamental human rights. A delicate balance indeed, delicate balance. That is how much you can take on today's edition of Tech Hub. Pretty exciting, pretty educational as well, right? Well, we need to leave now. Join the conversation on social media at SilverbirdN24 or at Mercy Frank. Whatever topic you want to talk about, you want us to talk about whatever guest you think we can bring on the show to talk about this issue so there can be a change is what we need. My name is Mercy Frank. And on to the next edition, ensure you wear your face mask and stay safe from the deadly coronavirus. Thanks for watching. Bye.